And today we are really happy to have all of you here on Women's Day. And I welcome you all on behalf of the clinic. I really heartily, warmly welcome Dr. Neeta. I'm really grateful for her being here. And a little bit of background about her, I just took from her website. So she is an Ayurveda doctor and with a wealth of experience of working under many eminent doctors. She also has experience of successfully running her own Ayurveda and Yoga center in India before she moved to the United Kingdom. She has worked as an Ayurvedic practitioner in the UK for many years and she blends Ayurveda and Yoga. She is a qualified 200 hours Raja Yoga teacher who aspires to spread the knowledge of yoga to achieve the best of physical and mental health. It will be excellent to call her because she represents Ayurveda, she represents yoga, is an entrepreneur herself. And with all that, she's also a homemaker at the base with two kids. And so we thought it'll be excellent to have her with us today and share her insights with us. So today, actually, the topic what we were wondering, what would we talk about on this Women's Day? What could be very pertinent to us? And we thought energy levels, because we spend in so many various roles all through the day, a lot of multitasking going on. So many times we feel drained, and how best we can actually keep our energy levels. So that was the idea. And Dr. Neeta happily agreed to share her suggestions and insights with us on this matter. So without any further delay, I invite Dr. Neeta and she can start with her session now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Happy Women's Day to everybody. Thank you very much to see you all. And I would like to pass my sincere thanks to Ram for inviting me for this, giving this opportunity to talk today. Yeah, today's topic is how to maintain our energy levels as we're multitasking. As Ram has already introduced, myself, so kind of I don't want to spend too much time. I don't want to waste my time introducing myself again. I am a Ayurveda practitioner with a wellness consultant and yoga practitioner as well. And coming to the actual topic, multitasking. So it is, I think, is a reality of 21st century for most women. So it is a part in the world where we live in, where we have to multitask. There is really no other choice, because most women would be doing this job throughout their life now, starting from a very young age, until they're at college, probably they're okay. After that, they start with their family, and then the health and the business and work and jobs and finances all juggling around. So this multitasking in the long run can really cause stress, chronic stress in the long run, if we don't manage our stress well, properly. And most of us have a tremendous pressure of managing all these tasks with perfection. That is another problem. There is a lot of pressure coming from the comparison, kind of how can she do that? How can other person do that? How your neighbors can do, friends can do. And I think and the social media on top of it, coming all the time, coming in, your people are comparing, including your own spouses comparing and the family, parents comparing, that can be a big problem, kind of there is a regular thing we see. And then we women become more critical of ourselves. We forget that we have to be kind on ourselves, and we start being critical, and that leads to more stress, added stress on top of the already existing stress of multitasking. Coming to how we actually multitask and what is the impact. Human brain is really not designed to multitask. So actually human brain can only concentrate on one task at a time, which is a reality actually. Because one of the famous cognitive scientists, David Meyer, he did a lot of research and he documented that human brain has a distinct bandwidth challenges. So it doesn't stretch like we are expected to stretch to multitask. It really can't. It makes multitasking problematic for humans. It is not there is no difference between men and women actually in terms of brain ability to multitask. On top of it, we try to do a lot more than men, saying that we can efficiently multitask, but that is not the reality actually. That is only way of men telling that women can multitask because women can do more things. So that's the easy way of, putting the blame on someone else. You're better at it and you can do this better than me. So it's actually not true. And what is the impact of multitasking? When we try to multitask, we're trying to spread our attention to a lot of different things, at the same time, causing the stress because you're not actually doing things together. You're switching and forth and back between the tasks. Your brain switches from one task to next task, and you're just getting the feeling that you're doing together. So with this multitasking, what happens is it builds the stress in your brain. Just like imagine if you're answering an email in your laptop and at the same time you're talking to somebody over the phone. And then we're really thinking I'm saving a lot of time because I'm talking to her and writing my email in this side. But actually you are not, because in your brain, that is, at the same time, you cannot, brain has only one neural channel through which the language can flow. So your writing is another language, writing through email and you're talking over the phone. At the same time, you're not doing simultaneously. It is switching from email to phone, phone to email. So when this switch happens, it is causing more stress because you're giving extra pressure on the brain to remember what you've said here, remember what you're writing here at the same time. And as you know, how the multitasking in terms of people driving on the wheels, how they call people, how they text sometimes, that is one of the main reason for a lot of automobile accidents in the current century. Last 10 years, they've recorded there's a massive number of accidents are due to the people being on the phone when they're driving, because you cannot really switch. You giving a focus for texting a minute and then you're focusing on the road, that is a high risk again. It is not like you're doing something, you drop something at home, it's fine. But on the wheel, you got to be extremely careful when you're even talking to somebody is again a multitasking. We really think I've got a Bluetooth, I'm fine, I can focus. But 1 minute, if you have something serious, if you're hearing a news of something really terrible thing that happened to someone or something emergency, your mind definitely would focus on what is more important. It start prioritizing, and then you lose the focus on your wheel. That is when we end up with accidents. So it is very important that we remember when we multitask, we really are not multitasking. We are switching from task to task. And then continuous multitasking for a very long run can really stress set off a chronic stress. And initially you wouldn't notice because we've been doing for years. So, once you start noticing it, by the time you'll have mental impact and the physical impact. Because you might have seen so many times when you're multitasking, it really brings your efficiency down and your productivity down by the end of it. So focusing on one task makes you more productive and more efficient in terms of how you finished your work and how you want it to be finished. And there are a lot of research to say that people who have done very creative work, they are the people. If you ask Michelangelo, if you ask some of the famous scientists, they come up with these things when they're relaxed, when they're sleeping, when they're not doing other things. Even Albert Einstein, he realized, all these theories came in when he was sitting and relaxing, not when he was working. So all the creative ideas come when you are relaxed, when you're not multitasking. So how do we deal with it? So because multitasking has become a real necessity for our life now currently, you can't live without multitasking. We can say that we can't multitask, but you'll have to do, because there is no choice because of the circumstances we live in, because most of the women, we work, and at the same time we have to manage your family, same time you have to worry about the finances, same time you have to worry about health, and lot more challenges. So at the same time you have to look good and eat well and diet. There's a lot more pressure. And then becoming a nuclear family, there is not enough support from the other family members. Like in olden days, people used to have someone looking after your kids and someone cooking and someone's doing something else. There is a lot of helping hand, and there is a lot of way you could talk to other people and relieve the stress. Now we are working throughout the day, doing everything, and then in the end of the day you're frustrated. You either burst out on your spouses or your kids or someone else, because you don't have enough time to, or opportunity to express yourself throughout the work. So when we completely multitask for the whole day, we had a busy day, end of the day, you really realize that it has not been very productive. So then there is a double stress of multitasking because on your brain, and stress of not getting a productive result. And then you start getting furthermore stressed on top of this. So it can have impact on both physical and mental level. Physically, main thing, when we are multitasking, we do not take breaks. When you really think, I've got too much things to do, I can't afford to sit down for a minute. So you're doing switching from task to task, running around, you physically wearing yourself out. And then coming to the mental aspect, stress of multitasking and stress of switching between the tasks, that again can lead to added up, pressure on your mind. How do we effectively multitask? Kind of, now it is inevitable that we have to multitask. So and how do we efficiently do it? So we causing minimum stress possible, and how do we deal with it? The first thing I would say is planning. These are the steps I do every day. So because I realize, I do a lot of multitasking, and end of the day, sometimes it gets really frustrating. That's when I started doing these actually. How do we plan? So plan your task in advance and write them down. I have a diary, which I write down for each particular date. I write down what I have to do today. So weekend, I sit down and say, I've got Saturday this, Sunday this, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Again, I do until then. Because it is important that you give that memory holiday, what we call. Give your memory a holiday. So more stress of multitasking comes on your mind because you're trying to remember things. And then, end of the day, you definitely tend to forget one or two things out of these 5-6 targets you've got for the day, because you forget, what one of the things at least, because it's too much pressure on your mind, because you're multitasking, extra pressure on the brain. On top of it, you are remembering all these things. So this writing down replaces your memory. So it's called memory holiday. Give a memory a holiday for a day. So that itself takes the burden off your mind. And then come the sequencing. So how do you put the activities together? How do you make it easy to multitask? So you multitask activities which are similar. So you can do them at a good speed. Rather than, switching between the difficult task and the easy task. So like, if you imagine if you're cycling, it's something like you're cycling and going for a walk. Imagine you run for 5 minutes, stop, then you get on the bike for 5 minutes, stop, get on, walk again. Do you think it is an efficient way of doing it? Best way to do it, run for 15 minutes, stop, then bike for 15 minutes. So you get more benefits and you get less worn out on your body because you're not switching, coming around the bike, going on a walk. Because again, it is something like this similar impact on your mind as well. Imagine if you're running 5 steps and then stopping, then it has more bad impact on your health, physical health. It's the same thing on your mind. So sequence it in such a way that you are not switching from one difficult task to other difficult task. Then the practice routine. You have to always practice how to multitask. A lot of people think women naturally get multitasking. It's not true. You have to practice multitasking. So start with practicing multitasking with the easier tasks, like which are second nature to you. Things you do, you're making a dosa on this side and you're, doing something else on this side, packing a snack for the kids this side, something which is second nature to you, which you do on a regular basis. And then once you're used to that multitasking, then gradually add another difficult task with an easy task and see how it works. Then coming to the breaking a reward loop. This is the most important thing which we all forget. When we are doing work, our brain has a curious feature to kill the productivity. What it does is when it just gives you a short-term reward, like you are working and then with sudden interruption, it creates some sudden interruption. You get sudden interruption to your brain, and then brain releases dopamine hormone to your system. That's a feel-good hormone. You feel, oh, I feel so nice. I'm doing work now. I'm sitting and doing my work, and suddenly my phone beeps, and I pick the phone. I look at my phone, WhatsApp notification, and suddenly email notification comes. And I think it's just 2 minutes. I'm just talking and just have a look through and see what is in. This is where we really all go wrong. So because the brain releases dopamine, it gives you a feeling that you're getting that pleasure out. I'm just 2 minutes, I'm checking and I'm fine. Actually, what it does is, it is just giving you a small dose of satisfaction at a cost of a huge stress on your brain. So because it gives that small satisfaction every time, we think it makes you addicted. Something like alcoholics and the people who drink alcohol and the people who smoke, they get addicted again and again. It's same thing. You might have observed, if you have a habit of checking, you feel like checking again and again. That is because of the dopamine. So it creates more stress. It gives you that kind of a small dose of satisfaction at that point of time, creating more stress on your brain, because end of the day, none of your projects get properly finished because you had so much of interruptions, and then you get more frustration leading to more stress. How do we do? Daily tips. With the planning and with the previous tips, continuing with the slowing down is the most important step. When we are multitasking, make sure you slow down with your pace. Take time to do a task, and be mindful about what you're doing rather than I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do that all together, doing it at a time, putting extra burden on your brain. And pick out the things which need more creative thinking, more thinking and planning to the morning or the afternoon, evening times rather than in the middle of the day where you have got time constraint to finish. In the morning and evening when you don't have too much of a time constraint to finish, like after you're going after evening, you finished all your chores, you want to do something, then you can sit down, relax, and then do the things more creatively. Or in the morning, you just send the kids to school and you're at work, you take all the things out, keep all the phones away and other things away, and sit down and do that tasks where you need a creative thinking. And make it simple to multitask. So don't put too many complicated stuff together in one day to multitask. And make it simple. If you have one easy task, put another difficult task after some time, and then maybe do two difficult tasks and two easy tasks on that particular day. And any one particular day, reduce the number of tasks and learn to prioritize them. Prioritize what is most important for today, which I must do. And some things can wait for tomorrow. It is not that it's a life and death situation. We have to do it tomorrow itself. And then coming to de-stressing techniques. These are the most important things because as we know, we all have to multitask. And then how do we de-stress? So there are different things you can do. Being an Ayurvedic doctor, I can't, not say the Ayurvedic recommendation point of view really. And some of the Ayurvedic therapies, including the detoxifications and the Shirodhara, massages, foot massages, head massages, and all these things are extremely beneficial, mainly to prevent the stress and also gives an opportunity to rejuvenate your body once in a while. Taking the Panchakarma once a year can, take the toxins out of your system, both physical and mental level, and help you to rejuvenate. And some of the Ayurvedic de-stressing adaptogenic herbs, ashwagandha, brahmi, and a lot of things, but definitely take advice of an Ayurveda practitioner before taking any herbs or the Panchakarma to see what is your prakriti and what is your strength and digestion capacity. Then decide on what herbs they will choose you, what is the right herb for you or the right detoxification for you. But things like massages, things like head massage, foot massage, and basic diet habit patterns and the fasting and not eating when you're hungry, when you're not hungry, things like that. These things can be followed by everybody pretty much. Then coming to the deep breathing, one of the most important and easiest way to do is the deep breathing because it doesn't really need a lot of focus. If I say do meditation every day for a newcomer, they will really get stressed because they really can't you can't sit down and focus because especially when you're multitasking and too many things on your head, you can't focus. Meditation is the next step beyond the deep breathing. When you learn to ground yourself, focus on yourself, then the next step is a meditation. First, practice deep breathing, the diaphragmatic breathing to start with is the first step because it has got biggest advantages because physically, as Usha has already mentioned, how the breathing can have an impact on you because breathing, when we breathe through the clavicular breathing, what you call the first type of breathing, the second one is intercostal breathing through the ribs, and the third one is a deep abdominal breathing. In the clavicular breathing, we only fill the top part of the lungs with air, which is pretty much most of us breathe through the clavicular breathing or the intercostal. Few of us is second worst type of breathing, intercostal breathing, where we use the intercostal muscles between the ribs to breathe. And the best breathing is the diaphragmatic breathing, where we use the deep abdominal muscles and we contract the diaphragm and we fill the whole of your lungs with air. Biggest advantage here is most of the carbon dioxide, stale air, stays at the bottom of your lungs because we are not squeezing it out. A lot of people think breathing is taking oxygen in. It is not. It is ventilation. You got to push the carbon dioxide out to get oxygen in. So with this kind of a breathing, you're providing more oxygen to your body and mind. And brain needs 4 times more oxygen than the body. Brain cells need 4 times more oxygen than the body. So this breathing will give you extra oxygen supply to your brain. So that itself will help in de-stressing your mind. Then meditation, to the next step as a meditation. Once you know you're doing, you have the awareness, and just sitting down anywhere, not trying to meditation. The whole aspect of a lot of meditation, what they say is focus. Not meditation is actually let your mind flow, without focusing too much on anything, and then eventually it'll learn to come in, living, and that itself can have a huge impact on your mental level. And then pranayama practice, as we said already, pranayama is nothing but controlling your breath. It is actually controlling your prana. It is controlling your pranic energy inside your body. It is not just the breath control. So it is a small organ in our chest, which is subtle organ, what we call. So that is when we breathe rapidly, it pulsates very rapidly. And then your mind goes off, wanders around everywhere. When we do a slow, calm breathing, pranendriya pulsates very, very slowly. And then your mind thinks, just like, for example, and it has a biggest advantage because pranendriya connects all your sense organs to the brain. So if you go, for example, if you run 100 meters fast and drink a juice, you would not be able to appreciate how it tastes like, because your mind is not connected to your pranendriya at that point of time. So this really regulates your pranendriya and helps in improving that connection and also reducing your stress. And regular practice of yoga is another big thing we can do. Some people can't do yoga, they can do even walking or any exercise. 20 minutes of exercises regularly for all of us would be really, really helpful for physical and mental aspect both. Then how Ayurveda can help in brief. So if you look at Ayurveda Dinachari or the daily routine, what it says, it really gives an opportunity for us to wind down and give that me time. I think we women should all learn to give that me time. I personally, myself, I give an hour for myself in the morning. You wouldn't believe it. Even with the busy schedule, I give an hour for myself in the morning. So that, keeping that routine of doing that dinachari on a daily basis really, really gives you an opportunity to give that me time, much needed me time for all of us. Self-care methods, learn to love yourself first. Otherwise, you cannot love anybody else if you don't love yourself first. So if you are well, you can look after everybody else surrounding you well. But if you are not well, everything falls apart. So just be, regardless of what you're doing, I agree. Some days it's a different thing, but on a regular basis, regardless of what other things you've got, just learn to keep that me time for yourself. And the first thing is you start with going to bed early. So try to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night. Because it is key, because when we sleep, a night sleep, it is a time where our brain shrinks and it opens all our channels in the brain, which is called lymphatics, they call it. It is almost like lymphatics in the body. They open up and release the toxins out of your system. So when you see as we grow, this current generation, we see a lot of people suffering with dementia very early, and Alzheimer's, memory loss, all these Parkinson's and all these things. They are nothing but a response to your stress. Brain produces a protein, and that protein causes all these problems in the long run. Because of the inflammation in the brain, it is a response to any stress hormone that produces in the body is a response to inflammation, either in the body or mind. So by getting that 7 to 8 hours of good night sleep, you are giving an opportunity for your brain to clear off the toxins from your system. So it has a better health, and that itself you might have seen, normally observe, when you have a good night's sleep, you are more relaxed in the morning, more stress-free. It gives you a lot of extra energy, physically as well as mentally. And physically as well, there is research to show that people who do not sleep well over the 5 years of time, adult over 40 years of age, get less than 5 hours of sleep at night, they end up with visceral fat, the fat around your abdominal organs, liver, stomach, intestine. There is a lot of research. Over the 5 years time, they see more visceral fat to the people who sleep less than 7 hours, less than 6-7 hours. So it's important that we get that much needed sleep at night, both for the physical as well as the mental health. Then waking up early is another thing, because when we wake up late, day's already gone past quite a bit, and you're lagging behind your scheduled tasks. So that adds more stress. So try to sleep on time. If you have a good 7 8 hours sleep, I'm sure you'll wake up early in the morning. So early rising makes you feel that you got a longer day. So you stop worrying less because I have to finish too many. You might have seen one day you wake up late and you think, I've got so much to do today or the whole day to catch up. How am I going to finish everything? So, waking up early gives that opportunity for you to spread your tasks evenly and without stress. And you commit to that daily routine, especially when you're going to trying to balance your stress, balance your physical health. It is good way to keep that routine. And then, have a nice cup of herbal tea, like a ginger tea or chamomile tea or Brahmi tea as a routine on a daily basis. Just 5 minutes, just boil the water, add some crushed ginger to it, and just filter it, boil it for 5 minutes and filter it, and just add a dash of lemon into it or just the honey and just sip it hot. Just think, okay, I will drink later. Don't do that. Just sit down and do that at that point of time. And then daily routine. I'm just going to give you a few daily routines which I do every day. It is my practical experience of doing these things. So this will really be very simple. It doesn't take really long. If you keep an hour for yourself in the morning, which I would say you all should do. So I wake up by around 5, half 5 in the morning, most days. Most days 5 o'clock. Occasionally, if I 5:30, if I'm really tired. So then I just brush my teeth and go to toilet and everything. Then I do oil pulling, just a plain coconut oil. I just gargle it for 5 minutes. Just leave it in the mouth for 5 minutes, or sometimes just gargle it 5 minutes and then just spit it out. Rinse with the warm water, and then just go down. Have a cup of nice warm water. I have water with the soaked raisins. I soak the raisins and I just drink that water in the morning. Then I do a oil massage. So you can use coconut oil, you can use sesame oil, which is the best oil to use. And then in India, you get the sesame oil, good ones as well, good ones compared to what we get here. So, and then, or else you can go to Ayurveda practitioner. If you have any Ayurveda doctor, you can always ask what suits your Prakriti. Kind of Pitta Prakriti people can use more cooler oils, and Vata Prakriti people can, oil is the best for Pitta Prakriti people. Vata Prakriti people can use sesame oil. Kapha Prakriti people can use a bit more hotter potency oils. So they can ask. Otherwise, in general, everybody can use sesame oil. Pitta Prakriti can particularly use coconut oil. It's very beneficial for them. Massage for about 10 minutes and then leave for under 5-10 minutes and then head to a nice warm shower. Over the weekend, you can try a bath if you have time. Then after shower, I come down and have my ginger tea. And then I do a little bit of a yoga practice. And because now the kids are starting school, I don't get too much time. I do 20-25 minutes, 5 minutes of deep breathing, and then I do a bit of a yoga exercises. If somebody is not used to yoga, they can just do a small walk outside if the weather is nice. Then once you do yoga and then everything, then you have a nice, go back and have some breakfast and everything. You can do, what you want to do. Get on with your daily routine. And then try and practice some deep breathing, even when you're stressed, especially momentary stress. Just take 5 minutes break when you're stressed out. Just take 5 breathing. Deep in, count of 5, relax, count, exhale for the count of 5. And then another important thing is deep relaxation. Just, you might know with the yoga teachers and a lot of yoga experience, just lying down in Shavasana and just focusing on your breath. Just doing the deep relaxation, because deep relaxation produces the effect just like the hibernation. That is the only time our muscle tension, basal muscle tension goes to zero. Even when we are fast asleep, some amount of basal muscle tension remains in your body. So this is the only time when you do deep relaxation, is the only time your basal muscle tension goes to complete zero. That is why there is research in America, a lot of research they've done on the deep relaxation. It shows that half an hour of deep relaxation can be equal to 3 hours of sleep. It gives the same amount of relaxation and rest compared to, I have to admit somebody. Same amount of relaxation it gives. And then coming to the end of the day, reading is really good. I would strongly advocate people to leave their screens, all the lights, blue lights, at least 30 minutes before getting to bed. Reading is the good switch for that, because again, the blue light stimulates the melatonin hormone, which puts you to sleep. So it rather wakes you up. and say that get up, there's no need to sleep. And then with the addiction, with the reward, I said, your brain gives you dopamine reward. Oh, I'm enjoying watching this, and you keep doing this again and again every day. So that becomes a habit, and it becomes a difficult habit to control. Yeah. Diet and lifestyle, coming to diet and lifestyle, eating healthy is key for everyone, especially women. Eating healthy according to one's constitution is better than eating, going for the regular diet norm. Because when you look at the diet pattern outside dietitians, they say eat a lot of salads, eat a lot of this, eat a lot of that, but it's definitely not suitable to everybody. If you ask a Vata Prakriti person to eat a lot of raw food, cold food, and salads, they will go super dry. So I'm Vata Prakriti, so I hardly eat salads except the very, very hot summers. And I would rather do a steam or a bake or a salt the vegetables and eat warm. I don't like the cold food because it immediately puts my vata off. It increases my vata quickly. So it is always good to know your prakriti. Now there are a lot of resources, you have Ayurveda doctors around, you have a lot of online resources to know what your prakriti is. So you can plan your diet accordingly. And then especially women, we have to take extra care because we go through a lot of other issues like menstrual cycle, childbirth, menopause, and hormonal issues, and all these things. We have to take extra care on our eating habits. Try to balance those hormonal changes that goes in our body on a regular basis. So eat balanced diet for everyone. Don't try to pick out, I'm not eating carb, I'm not eating this, I'm not eating fat. We need everything up for our body. Go for a balanced diet, plenty of healthy proteins, and moderate amount of fat. Fat is must for our body and brain. Otherwise, you'll have deficiency in your joints, in your brain, and everywhere. So moderate amount of healthy fats like coconut oil, avocados, or unroasted nuts, seeds, and all these things you can eat, in good amount, moderate amount, and then less carbs, more of fruits and vegetables. Definitely cut down on your sugars. That is a key. Sugar is a main culprit to trigger the inflammation in the body. So even if you want to have sugar, try and eat more of a natural sugar like a jaggery, unrefined sugars, honey. And once in a while, if you want to, everybody has a craving for the sweet and things. Make sure you eat sweet before lunch, not at the dinner time. Before the meal as well, so that you eat less of other foods. Otherwise, what we do is we eat so much of food first, full tummy, and then we pour the sweet on top of that. That is how we tend to overeat, all of us, even the kids. That's why make sure you have the sweets first, and then you eat less at least. You're compensating. Always when you're eating outside, we all go out and eat. Try and eat comparatively less quantity compared to what you normally eat at home. So you're not overeating yourself again with the junk. And drink plenty of water. And main thing is balance your stress with the regular breathing exercises and keeping the regular eating time, sleeping time, and everything. And regular exercise is key for the long-term health of all of us, physical and mental. It could be anything, just walking, running, cycling, yoga, but exercise according to your ability. You are not comparing yourself to other person for exercising because Ayurveda clearly says exercise up to half of your ability.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will end up overburning yourself. Like a Vata Prakriti people, you don't need to exercise too much because your Prakriti itself is such that you can't sit down. You're constantly doing things, you're constantly moving, you're going super fast. So you don't need that much of exercise compared to Kapha Prakriti people. Pitta Prakriti people, if they burn too much, they will go super, super angry and annoyed with themselves and everybody else because their Pitta increase in the body, their Rajoguna increase in the body, that is a direct impact. But in the Kapha Prakriti people, we say challenge that half strength. We say go a little bit beyond because they generally don't move so much anyway. They only like to do leisure activities. They're chilled out about everything. You push them a bit more and say you work out a bit more, run a bit more than half capacity. So plan when you can do and definitely avoid hard exercises and the difficult poses of yoga during the menstruation. There is lot of evidence suggests that it can have a long-term impact on your hormonal levels. So try and do simple stretches and the breathing practices, deep relaxations, and the pranayama you can do during the menstruation, but definitely not the first 3 days. the hard yoga practice or not even the proper gym exercises. Go for a night walk, it's perfectly fine, but not the hardcore exercises during the menstruation. Then coming to key mental attitude, I think this is the one which we all need as a women. Being positive and confident. That's the first thing. And you're not competing with anybody else. We don't have to be the best. It's a thing we see through the social media. Everybody wants to see as a perfect woman. We are all comparing ourselves to look good in terms of Kim Kardashian. If the world becomes all Kim Kardashians, full of Kim Kardashians, the world becomes really boring place. So, everybody, we're all different, we're all unique, and be positive and confident of what you are and what you can do rather than putting yourself with a lot of scrutiny and criticism that I'm not doing good enough, this is not good enough. There are people out there to tell you this is not good enough, that is not good enough. You can never ever please everybody in the world. End of the day, if you try to please everyone, you are going to be the one who is going to be the most unhappy in your life. So, including your husbands and kids and everybody. And at the end of the day, one thing that comes out of all these, end of the day, that if you are struggling tomorrow physically or mentally, most of the husbands or even the kids or the in-laws will come up and say that, we never asked you to do all those. It was your choice to do all those and you did it and it is your fault, basically. So you're not expecting a huge kind reward, an award for you because she did all this for us and she's today she's struggling. That is the reality of the world. Because you can't even blame them because they really think, okay, she didn't take enough care. So live in the present. So if you're thinking about the past, it causes depression. If you think about the future, it causes anxiety. Yeah. So the best thing to do is, if you want to be happy, learn to live in the present mostly. Do not think too much about what's going to happen tomorrow. Do not think too much about what has happened yesterday. And then learn to be kind on yourself. Don't criticize yourself. Be kind. Love yourself a bit more. And to a certain extent, be content. Because I think that is where we're all missing, because our mind is something. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, mind is like a drunken monkey bitten by a scorpion. You don't need anything else to explain. Drunken monkey itself is out of control, bitten by a scorpion on top of it is good enough. That is the mind. So when we do something, our mind is lame, it is dumb. Actually, mind is dumb. It is constantly, given input by the sense organs. It constantly gives the sense organs give you because when when your mind senses doesn't work, when you're sleeping, your mind doesn't think, isn't it? So it is your sense organs which constantly give you can never satisfy your senses. You see nice things, you want to see better, more things. You want to do something, you want to do better things. You want to eat something, you want to eat something better than that. So mind constantly gives you commentary saying that this is not good enough, that is not good enough, this is not good enough. Then we are never contented. We are aspiring more and more. That puts more pressure on us. It is good to be ambitious to a certain extent, but we also learn to draw a line where you think, okay, I am done. I have done all these things. I'm happy with this now. I don't want to, run beyond this, because that is where we all miss. In this current world, we are constantly trying to catch up with somebody. To-do list. Their neighbor's son has done this. They have done this. They have built a house. They've got this car. Because there is a constantly we are running to catch up. We're playing the catch-up game throughout. That puts us more pressure on us. And then stay away from the negativity. That is key. There are, people who are going to talk negative things all the time. Just try and steer away from them. Because even if you don't want to, negative thinking, negative talking has a wavelength which can come to your brain, affect your body and mind both. And trying to be helpful whenever possible. Because when you help people, it creates a hormone in your body which makes you feel good, and which is it has a positive impact on you. And it also has a positive impact on the person who helped you. And he's saying thank you to you. And that itself is creating happiness to you. And there's somebody, and that person who got helped by you, and also a person who watches you helping, there's a chance that they also might feel like helping other people. So you're spreading that positivity into the other people as well. And that gives you more feel-good hormone. Seeing your impact on other people's life as well. And then listen to your body and mind. When you think that your body tells you that I am worn out today, I am aching and I'm painful, take a break. When your mind says, I'm really stressed out, just take a break. Don't try to finish off all your tasks on that day just because you want to finish it off. I think that's it. I have to say, these are the main things. So, any questions, you're more than welcome to ask me in the end if we have time. I just hope you guys have enjoyed the session. Thank you for the opportunity to talk today.
Thank you so much.